Adam's house, and Gina's house, and Brian's house, this is the Adam Carolla Show. Adam's guest today, Glenn Beck, with Gina Grad on news, Paul Bryan on sound effects, and Dave Damashek's here for good sports. And now, earlier today, he tried to type hydroxychloroquine, and his computer's spell check shut down LA's power grid. Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get it on. No choice but to get on a mandate. You get it on. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for telling a friend. We love it that you share the show. Good day, Gina Grad.
Good day to you.
Handball, Brian.
I'm here. Can you hear me? Check 1, 2.
Yeah,
Copy that.
Brian's having a little technical difficulty, so he's on the phone versus Zoom. But we'll see how it goes, and we'll.
I'm sitting here staring at a web page for Zoom that is loading. It's been loading for 5 minutes. So if it connects, I will connect to you guys, and we'll have all of the bells and whistles.
Very well. I had a whole bunch of thoughts. One of them was based on talking to Dr. Drew about something that I think is interesting. It's kind of sociological, and we'll go down that road in a minute. I thought we'd buy ourselves a little technical time because Dawson and I have been working on my audiobook, I'm Your Emotional Support Animal, and we have another 2-minute or 3-minute snippet of it that we've been playing along the way. I record them, and then Dawson goes home and engineers them, and
I turn it into English.
He turns it into English. And what Dawson is doing is I literally flub every fourth word. So Dawson is having to put this thing together. It is a Herculean task.
It's fun.
And I appreciate it. And then Dawson puts them together, and he just kind of picks little topics or subjects that he thinks are relevant or funny, and I just leave him to his own on that. So which one did you pick for today?
Today, this sample is about hashtag heroes, and you'll set it up, and then you'll go through a couple of the more recent hashtags where everybody donned their capes.
Nice.
Here we go. In America, we think we can make problems vanish with slogans. Drug problems? Just say no. Car fatalities? Click it or ticket. Dropouts? No child left behind. Done. That's the bullshit that politicians employ to make it seem like they care. Now it's become a pastime of the civilian as well, in the form of hashtags. Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram are all littered with people standing on digital daises and proclaiming themselves to be heroes. It comes out most when tragedy occurs. There used to be 3 choices of what to do after a natural disaster, mass shooting, or terrorist incident. Number 1, cut a check to a charity. Number 2, go there like Sean Penn with a shotgun and a paddle. Or number 3, and my favorite, shut the fuck up. Now we've added a 4th. Post on social media. Feel proud and proclaim yourself a hero, but accomplish nothing. The algorithm in the head of someone who chooses number 4 is basically this. I don't want to go to Haiti and get tetanus. I don't want to cut a check because I like my money. What if I just hit Twitter and tear a comedian a new asshole over a joke? The easiest way to do number 4 is to jump on some trending hashtag, spit out a cliche that shows you're on the right side of the issue, and then get back to binge watching Netflix. Here are just a couple of the stupidest examples from the past few years. Hashtag, Oscars so white. I love the idea of all the actors and directors who got on board with that hashtag complaining about the lack of diversity in nominees when they're the Academy. It's not like the crew voting on the Oscars are the people in the MAGA caps at a Florida Trump rally. If you don't think the Oscars are diverse enough, vote for more diversity. Hashtag, we are Cecil. The people who live in Africa where Cecil the lion was shot don't give a fuck. But the Yentas in Orange County, California were aghast. This is the definition of a liberal, when the feelings overtake the facts. The human body count from issues people don't want to discuss, like black gang violence in Chicago or murders committed by illegal immigrants in Texas, Arizona, and California far outweigh the animal death toll from trophy hunting. But it was an easy issue to take a stance on and feel good about. I would love to build a time machine for the express purpose of going back to 2014, about 11 months before the dentist who killed Cecil went on safari, and say to him, guess what's going to be the biggest Halloween costume this coming year? I don't know. Wonder Woman? Nope. You. What? I'm a dentist from Roanoke, Virginia. Yes, and you're going to be the biggest Halloween costume of 2015. As he asked why, I would just cackle and fire up the time machine to leave his blown mind to sort it out.
Well said.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
That is kind of true. That guy would freak out, right?
No.
He would have no context for
Yeah, he'd
any
be
of it.
reeling.
Let's get back to this when I get back from Africa.
Yeah. I gotta go through quarantine, and we'll pick this up after I take my shots. All right. I had some other very different thoughts. So one is, and I'm always interested in the gang's input. I was talking to Dr. Drew, and Dr. Drew and I have these interesting conversations where we just kind of go, what are you thinking? Which way's the wind blowing? And I turn to him for medical stuff, and I think he kind of turns to me for more psychological stuff. So I wrote down the word anthropomorphic, and I wrote that down because I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about what we do with that word, and that's basically giving human qualities to animals or toasters,
Objects.
you know. And then that's what you do as a kid. So every, cars, planes, Pixar, Toy Story, that's what we do. And that's what kids do. That's what Pee-wee's Playhouse does, right?
Sure.
You have a
Very
talking
well.
chair, whatever. And
That's right.
as a kid, and we do that a little bit with like our dogs. Like, look at him. He knows, he thinks, he knows what he's thinking. He loves pizza. And because he knows, he thinks he's Italian, or whatever that is. But it's something you do a lot of when you're a kid, but you we're supposed to kind of stop when you get older.
I just thought about this yesterday because Christy, you were outside on the front lawn with Christy and Tessa, and Christy goes, "Oh, it's a ladybug. Ladybugs are nice." And I'm like, not that nice to kind of eat plants and, eat your vegetables and blah, 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 but they look adorable. Like
What you mean is they don't bite.
Yeah, exactly. They look so sweet.
Yeah.
Right. And so we do a lot of that. And as you guys know, I've been drilling down a lot on, Subarus are made with love, which is a version of this same thing. All these companies that are making things with love, and even all these little sayings. How about putting your name on a Coke can? We're making you the Coke, and the Coke is you.
Christy could probably talk about this, but I know that she's mentioned it for us, like becoming a lifestyle brand, right? Like Apple is excellent at this. The iPod wasn't even, the commercials were early commercials, remember, weren't even about the iPod. It was dancing, and it was like, it was like silhouettes dancing with the iPod, and Teslas, and it's less about the product and more about what it says about your lifestyle, that you have that product.
That is completely true. And I'm still drilling down on the actual making things into a human and you're right. It's like, look, they're not going to show a picture of the factory in China with the nets around it so people can't commit suicide. They're going to have the person dancing in the park with the happy hearts coming off their head, which is a part of it. It's all kind of part of this turning things into people. As I said, Subaru makes attack helicopters for the military, but it's made with love. And what it is, it's funny. So when I talk to Dr. Drew and I go, all roads lead to narcissism, he always goes, no, that's what kids do. And I'm like, it's kind of the same thing. Kids do that. And we are essentially committed to being a kid our entire life. And two things. One is Madison Avenue and that hot demo of, 13 to 22 or whatever. We all want to be in there. And then no one wants to get old and die. And so we're doing a lot of this. And then something I didn't share with Drew, but I'm going to share with you guys. I thought what's interesting, what's going on now, and it's going on in real time, and one may be helping the other or vice versa, which is this up. As we turn objects into people, or at least objects into things with feelings like love and caring and nurturing, and as you'll see it, like the proclamations from the people in power, you know, if you think about the mayor of Los Angeles or the governor of California, it's like half technical talk, like here's how many people we are dead and here's how many people are infected, and then the other half is like we're better together, you know, all of it, this sort of pep talk stuff. But I was also thinking simultaneously, as we take Subarus and we kind of turn them into people who love and hug, we're also at the same time taking humans and turning them into cartoon characters simultaneously. So I was thinking about it. Trump is a cartoon character, especially if you're on the left side of the aisle. And if you're on the right side of the aisle, Maxine Waters or Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi is an utter cartoon character if you're on the right. And if you're on the left, Trump is a character, a cartoon character. They're not even real people. I don't think that most people who are left-leaning think of Trump as a human, even as more of a character. And Nancy Pelosi, if you're on the right, seems like a cartoon character as well. And it kind of keeps going down the line. Like you go, if you're on the left, then Sean Hannity seems like a cartoon character.
I was going to say the cable commentators are great examples of this.
And if you're Rachel Maddow, if you're on the right, seems like a cartoon character.
Right.
And Laura Ingraham would seem like a cartoon character. And it goes right down the line. So I thought, well, this is interesting because in years, in a different, a bygone era, the politicians were politicians, and you could sort of agree with Jimmy Carter or Gerald Ford or whoever it was, but they looked at him as men, you know, who had these different ideas,
three-dimensional,
how to do things. And GM and Chevrolet were just GM and Chevrolet. Like we didn't assign anything to them. Do you guys think there's anything to the connection between the more, as we turn Subaru into a person, we're turning Nancy Pelosi into a cartoon character, like a non-person, like simultaneously?
I think that's fascinating because when I just thought of the phrase three-dimensional, it's like we're trying to make everything across the board two-dimensional. You know, like for instance, and I'm not using this, correctly, but let's say a Coke can is one-dimensional, but now we gave it a name. And that elevated it a little bit to two dimensions. And Donald Trump is a human being, but he doesn't really seem like it to a lot of people. So he's been lowered to it. So everything's just sort of this flat, equalized, two-dimensional board.
Right. And as you get to know, and so then if you'll know it if you spend any time around or socialize with, let's say, for me, it's like I know Dennis Prager and I know Tucker Carlson is great men. They're great family men. They're really good guys, and I like both of them. And I know Jimmy Kimmel is that as well. I get to know people on both sides of the aisle and all over the place, and I know who they are. If you heard the way people on either side speak about either one, you would have to know. I mean, it's like, I hear people talk about Tucker Carlson or Dennis Prager, and I'm like, they're not that guy at all. They're not that guy at all. Right. Oh, come on, bad guy. Come on, seriously, whatever. And it's like, where are you getting this? You're casting a Disney film is what you're doing. You're not giving them. There's no nuance here. Yes, Brian.
I know. I've noticed that as well, and I think a psychologist could probably tell you this more clearly, but I think it makes it easier for people to dismiss out of hand the other side or someone with opposing views or whatever, when you can simply go to, oh, that's a bad guy or that's a whatever. Like Like I have a microcosm of this on Twitter when I make like a joke about Trump, and right away it's like, oh yeah, orange man bad, you have Trump derangement syndrome. It's like, well, I know that's easy for you to dismiss what I'm saying, but I'm just making a joke. And I think it's easy for people to dismiss people on the other side when they can simply say, that's a bad dude, or he's horrible, or whatever version of it that is. You know what I mean?
Or
It's
in some way less human than I am and the
you
people
don't have
that I like.
you don't have to consider them in their point of view. You can just
Right.
say that's a bad dude.
No,
and
you're
be done with it.
right, and Gina, you're right, and that we're taking
I like that.
Trump and Pelosi and we're making them unhuman, and we're taking Subarus and the coronavirus and we're making them human. The coronavirus is a giant cartoon. It's a killer orb. They show giant pictures of it. It looks like a fucking Pac-Man with AIDS, and it's coming for you, man.
You know what I'm hearing people say when they ask questions and they don't even realize it? And I know it's just a way of speaking, but talk about humanizing the coronavirus. People are saying, so what you're saying essentially is coronavirus loves stainless steel, but it hates cardboard.
Right.
Like,
hates the
love
heat.
or any of it.
What it does is it'll climb up your nose and fuck your brain.
Because it loves to fuck brains.
That's what the coronavirus does. It'll fucking go down. It'll climb in your nose, right? Because here's what it does. It loves noses and it hates copper.
That's
right. Okay, it hates copper, but it loves nasal cavities, and it'll go in, and who knows? It may have some of its brothers and sisters with it. You know what I mean? Like it may be a full-on biker gang, a corona. And let me put up a big slide of it. See it? Look at it. Looks like a super angry planet. See all those weird spores coming off it?
Ooh,
that thing. Yeah, and that's the back of it. If you turn it around on the front, you see eyeballs.
Don't you dare.
Grin. Oh, I will turn that thing around. It looks
Don't you turn it around.
It'll look like a jack-o'-lantern. They always show the back side of the head. They got to show the front side of the pumpkin. Well, that thing does. That thing and its a merry band of comrades will go right up your nose. They'll fuck your brain.
No.
Then they'll go down and they'll throw a hot tub part in your lungs. All right?
Oh, gross.
They sound mean.
Yo, they're mean. No, they're mean, and they're coming for you.
No remorse. No remorse.
Right. So then we show this huge picture of this thing. Like in the past, maybe the graphic department wasn't quite as advanced 10 years ago, but whenever we had one of these pandemics, I don't remember seeing giant cartoon photos of the thing. We're definitely turning that thing into something.
AIDS wasn't like a tattooed gay basher.
I was just going to say, do we know what AIDS looks like? I have no idea.
Well, that's the whole thing. The coronavirus will be etched into my kid's psyche like anyone who survived Pearl Harbor remembers the Japanese flag. You know what I mean? I know what that looks like. I've seen that. That was on the side of every one of those zeros that bombed my ship. You could show Natalia the coronavirus when she was 89 and on her deathbed, and she would know exactly what it was.
She'd shudder.
Yeah. I mean, so it's kind of interesting. So there's this huge graphic of this ugly, scary orb that's kind of coming for us. And then we start ascribing all these human attributes to it about what it likes, as you said, Gina, and doesn't like, and where it is and where it could be hiding. You know what I mean? It's coming for you. And then 10 minutes later, Nancy Pelosi has a take, and we go, oh, that cartoon witch, what's she talking about? She doesn't even know what she's saying. Have another Dove bar, right? So it's interesting that we're simultaneously doing this. And of course, what would be a little bit better for all our psyche is if we thought of Trump and Pelosi as more human beings and less cartoon characters, and thought of the coronavirus as less an evil orb that was, created. I don't know, in the Disney lab and escape to personally come from us, and then look at it as any other thing you would have. If you walked into your kitchen and wiped the counter and then got an electron microscope on anything that was on your hands, it would look equally.
Right.
Everything
Scary.
Everything that's on your pillow if you put the electron microscope onto it, would look equally as horrifying.
Don't get started on a sponge.
I was gonna say, have you seen a dust mite blown up like 10,000 times?
God.
That is not one of God's creatures.
No, it's the scariest thing in the world. All right. Now, sorry, Dr. Zelenko is confirmed for tomorrow, so we'll talk to him about that. On the coronavirus front, I have a 60-second bit from the aforementioned Tucker Carlson that might give us some thoughts about what's going on here in Los Angeles. A new study, I think, out of Brian's own USC.
Oh, is this about the total number of? Yeah.
It's interesting. So let's give that 60 seconds. We'll give that a listen, and we'll see where that brings us.
LA County has been in full lockdown, a very strict lockdown, for more than a month. But a new study by USC, University of Southern California, suggests that 2.8 to 5.6% of the county already has had the virus. They tested positive for the antibodies. What does this mean? Well, it suggests that more than 400,000 people in LA County have been affected. Total number of confirmed cases, 8,000. We thought 8,000 people had got it. Turns out over 400,000 had got it. In other words, despite an unprecedented and strict lockdown, the disease apparently still spread all over. But fortunately, thank God, few people died. What does that tell you about what we're doing? We should think this through. And by the way, the end of the study had a line that said, we should think through our policies based on these numbers, on the science. Meanwhile, some encouraging news today from Ohio. The state's prison system has a huge number of coronavirus cases, massive, really, but most have no symptoms.
So interesting. And that, to me, means the more we find out, I feel like the faster we're going to sort of wrap this thing up.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be soon.
Hope
And
you're
I don't
right.
mean wrapped up for everybody. I just mean, look, I've been to 2 Laker games in the last 9 years. So maybe there are no more Laker games in my immediate future, but I go to a Laker game every 4.5 years. I go to work every day.
Right.
So I go out and have a steak dinner and a martini with a friend twice a month. And as long as I can get back to 9/10 of my regular routine,
Right.
I think most people, if they get to 6.5 or 7/10 of their routine, they'll be fine.
Yeah.
We don't need to go to Disneyland. So be it.
Right.
You know?
And what a great excuse for Brian and I. We'd love to take you to Disneyland. I have a bucket of money that I'm just waiting to
I know.
spend on you at Disneyland, but it's closed.
Oh, it's closed again.
But Brian, speaking of that, I don't have it in front of me, but we were reporting it last night that movie theaters are preparing to reopen, which actually makes sense because they can control where you sit. They can control, how spread out people are, and you're just sitting there. It's not like you're running in place breathing all over everybody.
Yeah.
So movie theaters kind of make sense.
Like Adam said, the one size fits all thing makes less and less sense the farther on you go. It's like,
Right.
yeah, we could go to movie theaters if people are responsible and wash hands and don't, just go touching everything and don't.
Well,
touch
right.
them.
And
like if you take
and
a
like ArcLight.
responsible.
Yeah, and you
take a
think of something like where
responsible-
you pick your seats, though, every 5 seats will just be blacked out, and you just pick the ones that are, farther away. I mean, there's ways to do it.
It's also incumbent on the businesses like the ArcLights or the movie theaters of the world to do the proper, wipe downs of the seats.
Right.
And stuff. Like we have to put our faith in them. They're going to do the right thing.
Also, we may learn that social distancing doesn't have an effect. Like, who knows what we're going to learn? Who maybe we learned that herd immunity is the direction to go in. Or, I mean, obviously, if you're elderly or obese, don't go into the movie theater. Lynette and I,
Do you mean that just anyway?
Yeah, it's a good point, because either you're talking too loud to the person next to you.
Yeah.
I don't get what the black fella's doing, Mildred.
What
There's
did he
either that
say?
or there's just a huge guy with the huge neck rolls who's in front of you and you can't see around him. So that's a good point anyway. And then you can do the ultimate social distancing that Lynette and I used to do when we'd go to the ArcLight in Hollywood and get locked out. Like, the movie would start at 8, and we showed up at 8:07, and like, we can't let you in. I'd be like, wow, that is the ultimate in social distancing.
Yeah,
We're
that's
physically
right.
not entering the theater we bought a ticket for.
Shunning you.
Speaking of movies, Ernest Lee Bigot is working on producing his own movie.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Oh,
interesting.
it's about time.
If you guys know,
Give the people what they want.
Birth of a Nation, too.
Ernest Lee.
Rebirth of a Nation.
Well, now that's a good idea there, Brian, with an I.
There you go, Ernest. Take it away.
God wanted you to spell Brian with an I. So there is no Y in Brian other than why the fuck would someone name their kid Brian and spell it with a Y? That's the Y.
You got
He
me.
just
there.
asked.
You know how there's no I in team?
Is there a Y?
No, don't ask why there's no I in team. There is an I in Brian.
What's your movie idea, Ernest?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Brian with an I. I was sitting around the other few months back. I was watching that movie with Carl Weathers, Action Jackson.
Right,
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, and I actually wrote down some of the people. Vanity gals in there. Jury's out on her. I can't tell what color she is. She is Robert Davi, one of the good ones. He's in there too. Sharon Stone, Craig T. Nelson. You know,
Yeah.
it's about a detective, black fella, well built. You know, from Rocky, like Carl.
Yeah, former
Weathers from
NFL
Rocky.
player. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that guy, he's all action Jackson. 1988, he's a detective. And I was thinking to myself, so I'm producing a movie about he has a young son.
Oh, it's like a Creed situation, you know what I mean? Like a spin-off.
Yeah, well, this one's a little different. He got into Cornell even though his SAT scores were low.
Oh, no.
It's affirmative action,
Ernest,
Jackson.
Ernest, I really have
What?
I really think this is a bad idea.
Why?
I think this is gonna be
Shouldn't we hear his story? Look, first off, his best friend is an Asian kid
Oh, no.
who has to go to community college, even though his test scores, SAT scores, were 600 points higher than affirmative action Jackson. But he still gets into Cornell. Okay?
Sure.
Here's the rub.
It's a good school.
Well, he can't do his homework,
Yeah,
you know,
of course,
because he doesn't know, right?
Yeah.
He should have made it into Cornell. So affirmative action Jackson, he's getting his buddy who's going to the community college, Asian kid. He's getting him to do all his homework, you know.
Oh, even
It's
though
like
he got bumped from getting into the college, he's still.
Well, he didn't make it in
Right.
because affirmative action Jackson took his spot. See what I'm saying?
I get it. Yeah.
The kind of a
I don't
Cyrano
know.
de Bergerac thing.
Who that?
Yeah, come
Cyrano
on.
de Bergerac.
I don't watch hockey. I watch the big three:
my
football, baseball, and basketball. I don't know who that.
Oh, you enjoy basketball. It's Cyrano de Bergerac. That's like
I'm more of a Celtic, more 80s Celtics fan.
understood. You know, like
it kind of drops off after that. Yeah, what's that?
He's whispering the answers essentially in his ear, and affirmative action Jackson's taking credit for it.
Right. That's
Okay.
the story.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we got the Asian kid. He couldn't get into Cornell because there's too many folks that look like him there.
Sure.
Affirmative action Jackson gets into Cornell. Of course, he can't cut it scholastically. So he's got the Asian kid who's going to junior college. He's doing all his work.
And
The end.
Oh.
That's true.
roll credits.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm coming around on this idea. Can I propose a tagline for you? Affirmative action Jackson. He's got the white stuff.
Oh, the white stuff. Now you're thinking like a Brian with an eye.
I'm just asking. Will that work?
He's just asking. All right. Let's see. Anyway, I wrote down affirmative action Jackson like a month ago on a scratch pad.
Did it wake you up in the middle of the night?
And he went to bed satisfied, slept like a baby.
Hey, I think this has come up before, but speaking of affirmative action Jackson, we all remember the movie Soul Man, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just checking.
Really, really good movie.
I've enjoyed it as a kid, but boy, oh boy, would that not fly?
Wouldn't work today.
C. Thomas Howell
That's right.
Yeah, and Radon Chong.
has changed his name to C. Thomas Run away from that role. Thank you very much.
Well done.
The other thing, Soul Man. Yeah, I mean,
not doing well on the charts.
He's putting shoe polish on his face. The other movie I was looking up as I was taking my deep dive into Wikipedia or IMDb or whatever it was, and I think Chris or somebody has the description of it. I brought it up before, but you got to listen when, the biggest time of movie going. Well, I'm interested in what you guys have to say, but for me, when I was like 11, 12, and 13, that was a big movie time. You had to get a ride to the theater. You had to get a ride home from the theater. There was a lot of networking and figuring out like whose mom's going to pick us up. And then here's a dime. You call when it's done, you know. And then the movies were so much bigger than life. And 1976, I was 12. And one of the movies that was this big movie that they advertised the shit out of was called Mother, Jugs, and Speed. And Mother, Jugs, and Speed, if you ever go back and just read the wiki, or I guess it's a wiki page of that, and just here's the plot, who's in it, here's what it's about, your mind will be blown. I mean, first off, it's Bill Cosby, Raquel Welch, and Harvey Keitel.
It's quite the cast.
Harvey Keitel in the rare comedy.
Yeah, now just read the description of it, Dawson, if you can, and who's in it. Sorry.
Mother, Jugs, and Speed is a 1976 American black comedy film directed by Peter Yates. Stars Bill Cosby as Mother, Raquel Welch as Jugs, Harvey Keitel as Speed, and Larry Hagman as employees of an independent ambulance service trying to survive in Los Angeles. Here's where it gets good.
I'm in.
The F&B Ambulance Company is locked in an intense battle with the Unity Ambulance Company to win a city contract for providing ambulance services to a territory within Los Angeles. Their star driver is Mother Tucker, Bill Cosby, a talented anti-hero who drinks alcohol on duty, harasses nuns, and behaves brazenly towards practically everybody he meets, including his partner, Leroy. Indeed, the entire company is a band of misfits, including the hypersexual John Murdoch, Larry Hagman, his partner, Walker, medical students, here we go. Handling calls at the switchboard is Jennifer, played by Raquel Welch, whom the drivers nickname Jugs for her ample bosom. When Walker is injured after falling through a staircase, Harry Fishman, there's so much good stuff in here.
Who is in this movie? It is crazy. I mean, Larry Hagman, and who would ever guess that J.R. Ewing and Harvey Keitel were in a big feature together?
Awesome.
A comedy.
And a big comedy.
Here's a great part. Speed is initially paired with Murdoch through their partnership, though their partnership is strained when Speed, played by Harvey Keitel, must stop Murdoch, played by Larry Hagman, from raping an unconscious female college student who has overdosed on Seconal.
And was asking for it.
I was going to say, was Bill like, I have an idea?
Bill's like, I want to punch up your script.
Yeah, let me punch this up.
Can we rehearse this scene 25 times?
All right, Max
Did you see who else was on the poster? Dick Butkus.
We must watch this movie because there's going to be some crazy Bill Cosby, and the whole thing's going to be crazy.
Mother Tucker.
That's
Tucker.
Excellent.
All right.
Would you like to know that I'm going down a wormhole here? The director, Mr. Yates, just 2 to 3 years later, would go on to direct Breaking Away.
That's right.
Whoa.
That's right.
Also directed a movie that was nominated for Best Picture that I've never heard of, and that's quite an indictment on me. You guys ever heard of The Dresser? 1983 movie called The time has not been kind to The Dresser. I don't know.
What year was it from?
83. It's about like a theater actor, Shakespearean actor, Albert Finney.
Yeah, there was The Dresser. There was also, I think, a Mel Brooks movie called 12 Chairs.
Oh, yeah. I saw that actually recently.
I found another gem in here that you need to hear.
Oh, we got the trailer?
Yes.
Go ahead, Dawson.
So Harvey Keitel is a disgraced sheriff's detective and a former Vietnam War ambulance driver. His partner, upon learning that he had been suspended from the sheriff force due to allegations that he sold cocaine to children, Mother nicknames him Speed.
Whoa.
Yeah.
This movie has everything.
She's supportive.
Mother Jugs. Just call Raquel Welch Jugs. All right, play the trailer, Max Bada. Let's see this. It's crazy.
Mother.
I can't help myself. I'm crazed.
Jugs.
Please stop calling me that.
And Speed.
I never used drugs.
Working for an ambulance company in a big city, they get to see life in ways most people don't.
Hey, wait a minute. Thank God's a quiet morning. Oh, my God.
Larry Hagman.
I happen to be the finest dermatologist in the city. Yeah, well, if acne breaks out, we'll let you know.
He says I have an airtight discrimination in employment suit, which could bankrupt this company.
This company is bankrupt. This franchise is not going under. Now we're going to pass, we're going to pass, we're going to pass, and we're going to score.
From Peter Yates, director of Suspect and Breaking Away.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I think we've seen enough.
And now,
Mother Jugs and Speed does not even show up on my streaming app, like as like where to find it. Like it's not even on there. I'm Googling it and it is not available anywhere streaming. Apparently, maybe it's on YouTube or something.
I was going to say, I'm surprised it wouldn't be on YouTube, the whole thing.
That's
well, you
crazy.
know, it's also one of these things where I'm sitting home in a house with no air conditioning, 3 channels, and a 13-inch black and white Zenith, no pet, and no basketball hoop. So it's like when this movie would come out at the Lorena or the El Portal Theater, I had to go.
Oh, my God.
This movie would come in to the El Portal Theater, be there for 3 months. And it's like, what am I going to do? I have to go see this movie. There's nothing else to do.
And there's air conditioning in there.
There's air conditioning in there. We're not going to get driven to, like, maybe on the other side of the hill, maybe in Westwood Village, there's a movie I would want to see, but no one's going to drive us there. The VW Squareback my mom drives is going to get vapor locked. She tries to go over Coldwater Canyon. So that's off. We can walk to the Lorena or the El Portal Theater. We can collect bottles and turn them in and get enough money to see it. And we can buy a Three Musketeer bar at Ralston's liquor store and then smuggle that into the theater. And then we're going to watch Mother Jugs and Speed. And there's going to be all these horrible sex jokes and drugs references and stuff like that. We don't even know what they're talking about, but there'll be people moving and it'll be air conditioned. That was the plan. And so these movies would show up and they were always big, like, oh, the posters were like the poster would be like the ambulance is doing a wheelie and Raquel Welch is hanging out with her tits. It's like that scene's not in the movie.
No,
There's
the
none of
poster
that.
was always a wild misrepresentation of the movie.
And then we just sit there and watch it. And that kind of, like, Sonny's 13. He wouldn't last 5 minutes if you took him to watch that.
Oh,
that
but
movie.
all the principal actors still alive at the moment. Perhaps we could do a sequel. Where are they now? Mother Jugs and Speed
nice.
too.
We'll get Bill furloughed. All right, let me hit True Niagen. Well, you heard about that on this program a couple of days back. NAD boosters. It's a trend, and there's only one backed both by clinical research and regulatory approvals. True Niagen. That's TRU. TRUNIAGEN, True Niagen. From the ages of 40 to 60, humans experience nearly 50% decline in NAD, leaving the I've spoke to Rob from this company quite some time. I take it. It's not free, but it's inexpensive relatively to what it does for you, and supports cellular defense and repair. And it's just Dr. Drew takes it. I think most people who know what they're doing take it. So why don't you count yourself amongst those people? That is TRUNIAGEN.com. Use the code ADAM for $20 off a 3+ month supply right now until April 30th. This is a real quality product, and I now take it, especially, well, now more than ever, as they say. All right, let's take ourselves a quick break. We'll come back and do the news with Gina right after this.
Breaking viral, all those crazy Trump tweets. Give me news with Gina Grad, trouble in the Middle East, celebrity drunk meltdowns. Deep news with Gina Grad.
The news with Gina Grad.
Well, we're going to come out the gate here with some piping hot, fresh off the presses, Rob Gronkowski news. I don't know if you're familiar with what is happening as we record this.
I saw a quick tweet. I had to do a bunch of pods earlier. I opened my computer and it's like Rob Gronkowski goes to Buccaneers, or traded by Buccaneers, or traded by the Patriots. I was like, what? No, what? What's going on? And then I shut my computer and I thought, well, we'll figure it out later.
Yeah, let me fill in some of the gaps. So he does seem to be officially coming back to the NFL, according to TMZ, reuniting with Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. And the deal should be done as we record this, they're saying, in less than 24 hours. So he'd been a little coy about a comeback, but apparently he's made up his mind and he will return to the league for the 2020 season. The issue apparently—
Gina, do you think he described himself as a little coy? Or are those your words?
No, I think that what is he, 6'6", 300?
Yes.
Big dude. I think he probably held up his fan and put it over his face and went,
Is that
so I just assumed, yeah, you masher. So to me, that's what coy means, right?
Yeah, masher.
So yeah, the issue is he's technically still a member of the New England Patriots, but the team has been in contact with Tampa Bay and worked out a deal to ship the future Hall of Fame tight end to Florida. The deal is the Patriots are sending Gronk and a 7th rounder to Tampa Bay for a 4th round pick. And apparently this all came to light with Andy Cohen on Watch What Happens Live. So sometimes you do get a breaking story on there.
He's always breaking the football news.
Yeah. Are you guys excited about that? Do you care?
No.
Well, it's something. I mean, Gronk's a kind of fun guy to watch. He's kind of like George Kittle, or maybe even a slightly larger version of George Kittle. It's kind of fun to watch those big guys rumble down the field, like big guys who can run a little bit,
right,
and are really physical. And so, like, the DB who is 6'1" and 191 pounds grabs onto these guys on the 35-yard line, and they wrestle with them. It's like, it's literally like, it's like they're trying to it's like you run up alongside of a bull and you're trying to turn its horns to get it into the ground, but you're going to cover the whole pen before you get him on. Then someone else jumps on and, makes for sort of fun highlights. Gronk's kind of that guy.
Yeah.
Also kind of makes you wonder, like, well, wait a minute now. A very familiar target for Brady. Do they have a chance now? Like, what's going on?
Like you were talking yesterday about, I mean, we didn't talk about like Shaq and Kobe, but you were talking about Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. Mm-hmm. So is this that big to football lovers, to Tom Brady and Gronk together at this new team?
No, but it's sort of like, I guess I would say it this way, Brian, you tell me if you agree. Basketball players have 5 guys on the court, mm-hmm. So that's 2/3 of the group,
team.
or 2/5 of that. This is 2/11 essentially, so it's a bigger group, but it still means a lot. But percentage-wise, obviously, it means less because there's many more people out there. Yes.
Although there's only 4 players eligible to catch passes, so or 5. Whatever it is. Anyway, I grow weary of the Gronk thing. It's fucking.
Would you rather him stick with hosting WWE?
I'd rather him stick with staying away from my eyeballs. But objectively, the greatest quarterback to tight end tandem of all time. I can't imagine maybe Dan Fouts and Kellen Winslow, but that's a different era. This is this is a great quarterback tight end duo throughout history.
It'll be fun to watch it. You just kind of hope Gronk gets injured a lot, so we'll see how that works.
Takes a lot of punishment.
Well, that's like they said, the deal should be dry in 24 hours. So we will see. Another sort of breaking story from late last night. Donald Trump announced Monday that he's temporarily suspending immigration in the U.S. during this coronavirus pandemic. In a tweet on Monday, he said, "In light of the attack from the invisible enemy, as well as the need to protect the jobs of our great American citizens, I will be signing an executive order to temporarily suspend immigration into the United States!" Exclamation point. This comes after the president previously shut down travel from China and Europe to halt the spread of COVID-19.
Well, I think this is an opportunity for both sides to try to move along an agenda. The Trump wants to close down the borders and all that. So then you go, oh, there's this pandemic. We can do that.
Right.
Nancy Pelosi wanted money for various things that didn't have to do with the pandemic. So she's going to go, here's an opportunity to get the Kennedy Center some funding. And I think it was a great Rahm Emanuel who said, never waste a tragedy or some version of that, which I think now all politicians do. If there's ever, see who said that. I think it was never waste.
Did you say that publicly?
Yeah.
Huh.
Never waste a good crisis?
I never waste a good crisis. Yeah.
Said by Winston Churchill.
Oh, sorry.
He's like maybe quoting.
Rahm Emanuel quoted it. He did quote it.
But, he quoted him. Yeah. Okay, so Winston said it. Rahm quoted him, and it's like, yeah, don't waste it. If if politicians are going to do what politicians are going to do, that's what they're going to do.
Right.
It'll never just be business as usual.
The one thing I don't understand about the tweet, I truly don't. So if you could help me understand it, if you do, that would be great. In light of the attack from this invisible enemy, okay, I get that. As well as the need to protect the jobs of our great American citizens, I'm suspending immigration. What is the parallel there between protecting our jobs?
I think a fair amount of jobs in this country are taken by people who weren't born in this country. And since we have so many people who were born in this country out of work and potentially out of work for a while, I guess, then he's talking about we're going to give those jobs to the people who were born here, not born here.
I guess. I for some reason, I mean, I think you're probably right, but does that, I don't know, it just seems like fuzzy math. Like that people only come here because when they already have a job, like what, we're not going to let the Swedish engineer in who, IBM hired or something. Like, I don't know. I'm still a little confused about how that really translates, but I guess we'll see.
Well, I think it's pretty straight. There's a bunch of citizens, let's say, or American citizens that lost their job, may not come back. Some of these jobs aren't coming back. So we're going to have a large population of people who are looking for work, and we don't want more people coming in who are going to add to that pool of people who are out of work. Or it kind of depends. See, everyone who comes here, or many people who come here, will do things for cheaper than what a lot of Americans will do. And my feeling is when you let too many people, like if you let, there's the weird little thing that no one talks about is when you let in a lot of low wage, unskilled people, it hurts the people at the bottom of our food chain. It doesn't hurt people in the middle or the top. The top benefits.
Yeah.
So if you own the farm, or you own the manufacturer or the chicken company, if you're Tyson Chicken or something, and you own that, then you're rich, and then you benefit from the people coming in who are working your chicken factory for $14 an hour versus the guy who was born down the street who wants $19 an hour. So it's actually putting pressure on wages to go downward, and it's hurting the poor people. Like I said, everything gets politicized, but Cesar Chavez, who's, he's a hero. He's a progressive hero. He ran the farmers union, and he had all Chicanos, they would call it back then. He had a whole bunch of poor Hispanic people who were on his side, the border and coming in and working on the farms because that was hurting his constituency.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you
Also-
for shedding some light on that.
I read on Twitter, and I'm seeing an article from wherever the hell this is, Reuters, that the immigration ban will have carve-outs for what it says here, exemptions for people involved in responding to the coronavirus outbreak, including farm workers and those helping to secure U.S. food supplies.
Interesting.
Oh.
All right.
I don't know. The farm worker thing is always weird to me. Like, we always say, who's going to pick your lettuce? And then you go, I don't know, have the kid with the red hair and the freckles do it. And then they'll go, oh, you want to pay $9 for a head of lettuce? And I'm always kind of like, I'll pay whatever it costs, whatever is fair, whatever's right. I don't like the idea of semi-slave labor, like coming in, like these people will work for wages that are unfair, but they're desperate. So then we get our lettuce for cheap. Right. I'm always like, or we could just treat it like a car. You just pay what it costs for the car to be made. I don't know what a head of lettuce costs, but I don't care. I'll pay it. Yes.
I agree with you. That's the double-edged sword of the free market and unfettered capitalism is sometimes you'll have people who are going to get paid $4 an hour to pick lettuce, you know what I mean? Because that's what the market dictates.
Well, it's a different, the only curve is if you have people who are desperate, who are fleeing horrible conditions and poverty come here, then they'll do stuff at a price that people from here won't do. And it'll kind of screw up the math on our curve. But I don't know. Anyway.
Well, we'll see how it shakes out.
We'll see how it shakes out.
So some other relatively breaking news, and they're very conflicting reports on what's going on, but it is being reported that North Korean leader Kim Jong Un is in grave danger after undergoing surgery for a heart problem, though South Korea says it has no evidence to corroborate this right now. American intelligence is reportedly monitoring it. There's been a lot of speculation about the health of this guy. He's 36 years old in recent days. Some claimed his health had gone downhill recently because he's overweight, overworked, and smokes. It's unclear what would happen to the regime if he was taken out of the equation. They're guessing his sister, Kim Yo-jong, could step in for a while, or North Korea could be ruled by a collective of leadership of ruling party elites and just have it be this sort of enclave of rulers. So, but that is, at this point, that is literally what we know.
Was his sister the one who showed up at the Olympics? Ooh. And everyone kind of was like, oh, look at her.
I don't remember.
Put together. I think there was a story about her in the Olympics. I don't know. Does it ever matter? Like, I always just feel like, oh, there's that house down the street, and there's a bunch of meth head bikers that live there, and then one of them died, and now the other meth head biker's going to live in the house with his 7 buddies. Like, it's just, it'd be nice if there was some turnover where,
that's the naive, like maybe this will be, a time for revolution, but maybe not.
Maybe not.
They just die, and then their brother, their sister, their whatever gets the job, and then they do the exact same thing.
Well, the first 2 headlines that come up this is from 2018. Kim Jong Un's sister is stealing the show at the Winter Olympics.
That's
and
right.
The next headline, Kim Yo-jong, the sister of Kim Jong Un, fast becoming his alter ego.
Oh,
yeah.
So,
she's stealing the show.
Yeah,
she's going to steal the throne. I got to say, I am dismayed that in 2020 we have so many of these governments still going along. You know what I mean? Like, I get it if it was 1951, maybe, but you just go, oh, here's what's going on in China, and here's what's going on in North Korea, and here's what's going on in Africa. And you're like, why is this still going? How can this still go? How can it still be? Yes.
North Korea specifically, where it's like, how much effort and resources are being spent on keeping secrecy or keeping the walls up, so to speak, the invisible walls, or keeping the internet out of North Carolina. Yeah. North Korea. Like, what a ridiculous effort that could be spent on other things.
Well, not ridiculous if you're trying to keep people sheltered and, hate the outside world. It's money well spent.
Is there a version of this shit where you still get to be in charge and rich and fat and fuck strangers and shoot 189 on your golf game and have the guy write down 61? Like, isn't there still a version of this where
You just described Donald Trump.
I know. I was thinking about him. I was like,
Okay.
he's doing okay.
Yeah, we can. There's a positive way to spin this.
Yeah, he's doing fine, and I don't have to eat tree bark, you know? I can call Grubhub, and he can fucking shoot a 21 on the back 9 at Riviera. Like,
yeah.
Why can't I know the problem, you know, there's kind of a problem with, maybe there's an inherent problem with all this stuff, which is it's either your way or we hang you in the middle of middle of the square, the middle of the town square. You know what I mean? You're either Mussolini A or Mussolini B, you know? And I guess, so if you're in charge, you have to hang on with both hands and crush anyone around you, because the alternative is you not transitioning into another form of government. It's you being strung up, exiled, and you're having your entire family killed. So with that in mind,
either way, your family's dying. You're killing them, or the people are killing them.
But can't we give these guys a golden parachute? You know what I mean? Like a little incentive to kind of slide aside. Because if you really think about it, like if you are running one of these republics and you're thinking to yourself, I wouldn't mind a little democracy, and it's like, yeah, but that means everyone's going to they're going to storm your palace and they're going to string you up. It's like, oh yeah, I better hang on to this plan. Let's double down on my plan.
How about this? Instead of witness protection, dictator protection program. Like Trump sidles up to King Jong Un. God willing, he pulls through. It's like, hey man, I get the predicament you're in. If you give this all up, you're a dead man. They'll string you up. Just give it all up. We'll take you in. We'll give you a nice, condo.
Yeah, what do you think of Montana?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we'll set you up with, a good stipend.
Well,
yeah,
and
like that Steve Martin movie with Marty Short.
My Blue Heaven.
Yeah,
I love it.
Thank you.
Fantastic. And then you think, well, is he just crazy and eccentric and does things for no reason? Maybe. But remember, he travels with his own toilet because he doesn't want, quote unquote, sewer divers rummaging around and trying to find things out about his health. So is there a way that he's had some, I don't know, upper GI cancer for years and he doesn't want people to find that out? Who knows? But he does travel with his own toilet.
Part of the pitch is also, it's such a calorie burner, like look at our ex-leaders, look at President Obama. The guy's, I don't know where he's at right now, Cape Hatteras or something. He's on some Cape. He's probably hanging out with George Clooney. And he's got some Netflix deals. You know what I mean? This guy's the toast of the town. What a great retired life. It's hobnobbing with A-listers, playing golf, and doing big publishing deals, network deals, hanging out with Oprah. I mean, if we could promise them a slice of that life after their reign, they'd be more than happy to step aside.
Yeah, maybe we split the difference and give them an island. And say you can live out your days here, like put them out to pasture.
Well, what's Epstein's island? Was that Epstein I'm thinking about?
Yeah,
give him
Epstein.
Yeah, what's he doing with the island?
Literally
not
nothing.
Fucking. No, not fucking.
There's a bunch of 16-year-old chicks just waiting on the shore going, where the fuck's that plane?
They're probably older by now.
Oh, yeah. You're right. Good call.
Well, poisonings related to cleaners and disinfectants have surged in the U.S., particularly in the last month, as the global pandemic spurred this haphazard rush to disinfect everything. This is according to Bloomberg News. Calls to state and local poison control centers tied to cleaners and disinfectants rose 20% in the first quarter. That's 45,550, by the way, according to data from the CDC. Complaints include shortness of breath from inhalation, dizziness, vomiting from ingestion. So a lot of people, they said in the article, are putting their produce in bleach.
Oh boy.
Things like that. Bad ideas.
Get the
Have you seen that coronavirus, that big blown up color picture of that thing?
It loves tomatoes.
It looks like a killer tomato.
Yeah, that's right.
It does.
It's coming again. If they turn it around, I'll show the evil eyes on that thing and scary scowl on its mouth. Yeah, so everyone is utterly freaked out, and this is one of those, byproducts of
Right.
what we're doing.
And there was that couple, I don't know, a month ago, Brian, I think you remember that the guy died, it was an older couple, and I think in Florida,
He
because
drank the
fish
aquarium cleaner. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
So, everybody relax with that. That's not a great idea.
One more, Gina Grant.
All right. Let's see. Well, you know what? Let's end on some good news. We've heard in the past couple years that Kim Kardashian going out of her way to really help the people. Khloe is following suit in her own little way. She's been helping out during this pandemic. She's hitting up different Trader Joe's and Ralph's in LA and getting there early to pay for those elderly shopping hours for their food in their baskets and in their carts, as different supermarkets open early to accommodate older people. She even helped out grocery staffers. TMZ sources say Khloe bought store gift cards for over 200 of the employees so they could use them at their store. Meanwhile, Miss Kylie donated $1 million to COVID relief, and she donated hand sanitizer. And Kim's undergarment company Skims also donated $1 million. So you know what? That's good press.
I just had this discussion last night because Sonny is getting deep into the Family Guy.
Oh, good.
He has my episode, Death Lives, in his top 30, but he won't say where.
So benevolent.
Yeah, I know. And I always kid around with him, like, favorite episode, right? And he's like,
It's up there.
It's up there. It's upper third.
Contender.
Yeah. So now it's weird. You'll notice it with Tessa soon enough, but at some point your kids start coming online.
Yeah.
And, Sonny's now watched every episode of Family Guy. And now he comes in, he says to me, hey, does Seth MacFarlane have an IMAX theater in his house? And I go, yeah, I've been in it. And he goes, you have? Yeah, it's next to the underground bar we'd sit and drink at after hours, after the Christmas party. You been in the IMAX? Yeah. You been in the bar? Yeah. You go for the Christmas party? Yeah, if I'm in town. Could I go to the Christmas party? I go, So it's weird. Now you're waking up to this thing. And then Natalia goes, hey, do you know the Kardashians? And I'm like, no. And he's like, could you make friends with the Kardashians? Because Natalia only wants to go to Kardashian's house. Sure. The boy wants to go to Seth MacFarlane's place. And he's like, I hear he sings those Frank Sinatra songs like he sings in Family Guy. And I'm like, absolutely, he sings those songs all night. And you can see these old gears turning in his brain. And he's like, can I go? And I start thinking, yeah, it might be cool. So we'll keep you posted. But that was my Kardashian Family Guy discussion last night. Let me hit Geico here. Do you own? Do you rent? Sure you do, one or the other. Well, we're going to make it easy for you to bundle and save a bunch of money. Go to Geico. Geico makes it easy. Bundle your homeowners and your renters insurance. Good thing, because you got so much to do around the house. Why not save yourself some time, save yourself some money? Go to geico.com, get a quote, see just how much you could save. That is Geico.com. It is Geico easy to bundle your homeowners or your renters with your automotive insurance at Geico. All right, Gina, let's bring it home.
You got it. I'm Gina Grad, and that's the news.
Gina Grad.
That was the news with Gina Grad.
All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back with a one-on-one with Mr. Glenn Beck right after this.
In the spirit of Murrow, Jennings, Cronkite, here's another great moment in local news.
Well, if you're craving IKEA's most popular dish, you can learn how to make them at home. The furniture giant posted the recipes for its famous Swedish meatballs and cream sauce.
Now, you can imagine this is getting a ton of attention and reaction. At least one person said, yeah, the recipe at least looks easier to put together than IKEA's furniture.
Now that's saying something.
That's a great moment in local news. Now, back to the Adam Carolla Show.
Glenn Beck has joined us on the program. Good to speak to you again, my friend.
Good to talk to you, Adam. How are things?
They're different, but well, and kind of in its own kind of thought-provoking way, in this
Yeah.
own kind of thing of like somebody saying, I got into a horrible skiing accident. I was in the hospital for 2 months in traction. And it was in that 2 months when I decided to X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? Like you got knocked off of your path and your schedule is not the same. And now you're forced to go to different places. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I think my family is better, healthier. I'm closer to my kids right now. We all kind of know what's important and what's not, you know. On the other hand, I'm with my kids 24/7 and they're teenagers. And
yeah. No, it's funny. The arc is like the first 10 days are like, wow, I'm really getting to know my kids. And then on the 11th day, it's like, I got to hire a drifter to kill my kids. That's basically the arc.
That's exactly where we are.
The book, Arguing with Socialists, it's available now on Amazon and just hit the New York Times bestseller list. So congrats on that. Debunks socialist arguments and proves free market is the only way to go. And of course, the Glenn Beck program radio show, weekdays, 9 a.m. to noon Eastern. And you can go to glennbeck.com and find out all the programs and all the programming and all you need to know. I heard you probably talking, I guess it was on Prager's show, Dennis Prager's show. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, last week.
Yeah, last week, and you were talking about the book, and I was listening. You know, the older I get, the more I realize that people aren't inherently good or bad. They just need incentive. And then the same person is capable of incredible acts of energy or lethargy, depending on what the motivation is. You see it in every kid. Every kid. You give them a little incentive, clean your room. That's clean in the next hour. We're going to the beach. They go nuts.
Yeah.
Tell them clean your room because it's the right thing to do. You don't get a clean room.
Right.
I recognize that.
Right.
And that to me is kind of our system. The notion that socialism would work is you're flying in the face of the human condition.
Absolutely. So, socialism, that's the real problem with it. It is, it's anti-human nature. It goes against everything in nature. It's nice to share, but that's not what socialism is. Socialism is taking someone's drive from them, their ability fail. I said this in 2008. I have a right to fail. And the failure of the banks, if they would have been allowed to fail in 2008, we wouldn't be sitting in the mess that we're sitting in right now. But they didn't change their behavior. They doubled down on their behavior. So failure is just as important as success. And, I know there are some people that just would rather just be told what to do and they're not entrepreneurial and, they just want to do their thing. That's cool. But I'm not one of them. And there needs to be a place on earth where you can go if you have an idea and you can go and try it and fail or try it and succeed. But that's not really what we are anymore.
Well, the thing that I find interesting about socialism or sort of derivatives of that is we look at it as be kind to the person, help them out, give them some stuff.
Right.
My feeling is you shall destroy that person. You have no idea what you're doing to that person or that group.
So Adam, I came from a working class family. We didn't have money. I don't ever remember talking about charity other than just, doing extra stuff for people. We didn't have money. And when I first started making real money, I went to my bishop at my church, and he happened to be a former president of Goldman Sachs. And I said to him, I don't know how to really be charitable and be responsible with my money. And he said, you have to look at charity. He said, now maybe this is the investor in me. He said, but I look at it as an investment in people. He said, so whatever the human condition is that you are focusing on, what investment are you going to make? Who has the best chance of turning that situation? Who's going to get most of that dollar to whatever that condition is? I called him about 6 months later because somebody at the church had called me and said, "Hey, Glenn, I need to borrow some money, blah, blah, blah." And I could easily do it. But I called my bishop and I said, "Hey, you know the situation with so-and-so?" I said, he said, "He's called you for money, hasn't he?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Glenn, you don't know the situation. Please, I'm going to ask you to do something that is going to seem very unchristian, but do not help him out." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, I can." And he said, "I know, but you don't know the situation. He's struggling with this and this and this, and I don't want to go into details." He said, "But you will undo everything that we are trying to do and trying to help him. Otherwise, he's going to be dependent forever." And that, I think, is really important to understand. There is a difference between a hand out and a hand up. It requires you to lift yourself up and meet halfway, to do something. You're in that situation perhaps for no reason, but perhaps for a reason. What is it you're supposed to learn, and what is your part that you have to do to be able to use that investment that somebody made in you to bring you to a higher level? You don't do that now.
Well, I don't want to just open up the whole bag of cliches, but you're kind of robbing people of their dignity. People would be much better off if you said, I've never thought about this before, but if you said to somebody who is waiting in a soup kitchen line, "I'm going to give you a free lunch. First, you do 10 push-ups, and then I'll give you your tray with your free lunch on it." That person would physically get stronger, and that person would emotionally and spiritually get stronger as well. And the person asking them to do 10 push-ups before they handed them their free lunch tray would sound like the cruelest person in the world if they wrote a headline in the Los Angeles Times where worker at soup kitchen forces homeless to do 10 push-ups before they get their, and so this is, okay, now we're going to keep going down this analogy.
There's something about earning.
Yes.
Something.
Yes. And then here's what I would say, if we're going to just keep going down this analogy road. Every 15th person in that soup kitchen would have a physical problem that would prevent them from doing the 10 push-ups. And for that person, give them the free sandwich. But the other 14
do something that
they can do. That's right. So that they can start building up their muscles spiritually and then climb back into being a member of society versus sort of a taker from society for them. That's the thing, for them.
I have an old friend who told me once that his father was part of the work projects in out west during the Second World War. And his father was the foreman, and they were digging some canal, and they only had work for, 200 people. And he said this guy came up, and he came up and he just grabbed a shovel and he went down into the trench and started digging. And my friend's dad said, "Hey, whoa. Who are you?" He said, we don't have you on the list." And the guy looked up at him and said, "Please, sir, I have to work." And he said, "I can't pay you. I don't have anything." And he looked at him and had tears in his eyes and he said, "Please, I just have to work." And all he really wanted, he wanted to be paid, but he was fine just working. He hadn't worked for so long. He felt useless. And I think there's something to that, and something to also hard work. I have a ranch. In fact, we were out today with a chainsaw, and we're just cutting down some trees and cleaning up some mess from the winter today. And there is something satisfying about actually working with your hands. My hands are like baby's skin. I've never worked hard a day in my life, but there is something about coming home, being inside after a hard day's work where you've accomplished something. that's meaningful.
Yeah. Well, I'm a broken record with this stuff because I come from that very blue collar background, and there's a sort of a baseline sanity that the guys who work for me shaping metal and hanging drywall, I have those guys who work for me, and when I talk to those guys, there's a very baseline of sanity that they're always sort of in. They're not moody. And the reason they're always there is because their brain is always engaged in solving a problem. And I don't think that people are aware of just how wired we are to solve problems and be engaged. And when I realize that I spend so much time thinking about physical problems and solving physical problems, always have 15 different projects, building, restoring cars, blah, blah, blah. And it's so engaging and healthy. It's the difference between sitting in a waiting room and playing chess and sitting in a waiting room and watching porn on your computer. Like one just makes you more agitated, more whatever, and the other kind of gets your brain engaged. And we are moving away from that society. Obviously, most people don't have to go dig a well or walk with a gourd on their head for 10 miles with water in it. But you better think of some version of that for yourself.
I have
if you
to
sit
tell
around and watch the news all day, you'll go insane.
You'll go insane. I'm a painter, a really bad painter, but I'm a painter. And while I'm not shaping metal, I'm not building an engine, I am using my brain trying to figure out how does that eye work exactly? How do I get that shape and that look on flat surface to look the way it's supposed to look? And it is so frustrating. However, I can spend all day working on just a face or working on something, trying to figure it out. And I leave not frustrated. I leave, happy. I've accomplished something. I've done it.
Yeah, it's all I think about really is the mechanical world. And I do realize that those that aren't living in that world struggle more with you have to approach everything from laying tile to a pandemic with a kind of a pragmatism that I don't think people have anymore. And there's a kind of horse sense and a pragmatism and wisdom, all the things that we used to put a real value on.
I think that I think the country went astray when we moved away from the farms. When we were no longer, when you can talk to a kid and they have absolutely no idea where that lamb chop came from. They have no idea where that hamburger came from. We first got cattle and my kids were little, and absolutely everything starts to make sense. And you don't really have to teach your kids very much because it's all happening right there. You're the circle of life, growing of animals, growing of food, working with your hands, working in the soil. There's just something different about it. I think that's the biggest problem is I grew up in my dad's bakery and he was a working class stiff and not real successful, but he loved what he did and we all worked at the bakery. So I was working by the time I was 8, but in the summers, I would go to my grandfather's house. And my grandfather was an engineer, but he was more of a farmer and jack of all trades. He worked at Boeing, but his real love was just working out on the farm. And every summer we worked out there. I think if without that, I don't know who I would be. Without my dad working in the bakery, I don't know who I'd be. If I was just on my phone all the time with our kids today, I don't know how I'd do it.
Well, I had this thought, and the thought that I always talk to Dr. Drew about is money is invisible now. So everyone's got a debit, whatever, their card, they got an app, they got a thing with Starbucks and their thing and their McDonald's and the the Grubhub guy is going to bring. And so I realized that, when you used to work and you'd get $7 an hour and you'd get paid in cash, it was super tangible. I mean, money started off as buckskins and wampum or pelts or whatever. I mean, super tangible. Then, you go to silver pieces or gold pieces, very tangible. You could feel the weight of money. You could tell how much money you had in your pocket by the weight, And then when I was growing up, it was all cash, everything all the time, no credit cards, no debit, no, electronic transfers, no anything. My children look at money as invisible. It's invisible. It has no meaning. It has no meaning because it doesn't exist, because it's invisible. They didn't mow a lawn. They didn't mow 5 lawns and have some guy peel off $1 bills and 50 cents, they couldn't feel the heft of it, smell it, the weight in their hand. I'm wondering if food is kind of becoming invisible as well. Because when you're on a ranch or you're on a farm, you don't throw away stuff because of how much work it took to harvest that stuff. But when Grubhub just brings by Taco Bell, now food is kind of invisible and the money that paid for it is invisible. Thoughts?
There was an article, I think it was in the New York Times last week, that talked about how money is becoming meaningless. And they were using this latest bailout and the printing of $6 trillion. If we were actually having to print $6 trillion, it would take us over a year to print it, to physically print it, cut it, and ship it out. Over a year. We printed it or we digitized it in one day. We just, here's 6 trillion, and boom, there it is. And so the numbers are getting so huge and everything is so ethereal that it has no meaning anymore. Property is losing its value. Far as my kid's 15 years old, almost 15 and a half. Adam, I don't know about you, but I counted the days before I could get my driver's license and my permit. I counted the first day I could get my permit, I was there. I keep saying to my son, what? Get your permit, man. All you have to do is take one test online. You can cheat. You take it online. Why aren't you getting your permit? I don't know. There's a difference in this generation of ownership. Take an Uber. I don't need to own it. I'll take an Uber. We're losing the ownership and the earning of things. And that I guess could be good, but it's definitely different. Definitely different.
Well, I think like any technology, it's going to have some upside and some downside. I always say a gun isn't evil or good. It's just, does the cop have it? Does the gangbanger have it? It's not the gun itself. Who's holding the gun? What are they doing with it? So I kind of think of most technologies that way. And, maybe it'll be a good thing that my kids don't need a car and don't have to have the expensive cars and don't get a DUI in their car when they're 19 or whatever it is. But I agree with you. I like a little pride of ownership. And I like that feeling of washing your own car on a Saturday with the radio turned up and your cutoffs. I like the idea of those projects, I'm going to change the oil and flush the radiator. I was just thinking about, you watch these movies from the 70s and 80s and, or a TV show and you see TJ Hookers driving down Ventura Boulevard and there's a big place that says radiators. We flush them, we rebuild them. It's like, when's the last time anyone went in to have their radiator flushed? Who has a radiator shop? This crazy stuff. And it was sort of satisfying in a quiet and subtle way that you just spend the weekend flushing that radiator and gapping those spark plugs. And when you turn the key and it fired up, there's something really satisfying about it. And there's also something satisfying about knowing that you knew how to do these endeavors. So, kids in an invisible world I was kind of picturing when you're playing a video game. So it's like I have driven in plenty of race cars, and I've also driven in race simulators. And when you're driving in a race simulator, if you get into an accident, it doesn't matter. Like nothing matters. It's like, so what? I drove off the road or my car spun around. But if you're physically in a race car and that happens, you're injured or died or killed somebody or destroyed the car, whatever it is. And so you want that sort of delicate focus that you have in the real car, as opposed to the kind of laissez-faire approach to things that you have in the simulator. And so when you have to melt down gold ingots, that's in the car. And when you hit some button and it digitally produce $6 jillion, that's the simulator. And in the world of the simulator, nothing really matters.
Right. I mean, think of this, Adam. Isn't that exactly what we did with the bailouts? Banks, they crashed, but it wasn't real. They didn't get crashed. Nobody they knew really got hurt. You know, it was just all numbers and digits, and it was just their bank accounts were just replenished. They didn't have to hurt. There is no hurt. That's part of the failure thing that I think is so important. You have to pay a price. If you don't pay a price, you don't learn. It's not real.
Well, conversely, as we talk about kind of the death of math, conversely, we then have the politician who says, if one person dies of the coronavirus, then I didn't do my job. I'm not going to stop this lockdown until it's 100% safe. 100%. It's like, okay, now you're doing the wrong math on the low end of the scale.
Well, but again, nobody's learning from anything. I was at the Grand Canyon. You ever been to the Native American side of the Grand Canyon?
I've been to the Grand Canyon, but I don't think I've been to the Native American side.
You'd know it's vastly different. One is the national park, and it's got little guardrails and fences and signs everywhere. You go to the Native American side, it's just the cliff.
Right.
And you can walk right up to it. And I said to the Native American guide, I said, how many people just fall off the edge? And he laughed and he said, you guys, people die in the Grand Canyon in America all the time. On our side, no one. I said, how come? And he said, because on your side, everybody just assumes the government's going to keep you safe. So they wouldn't build a fence that I couldn't sit on top of if it wasn't safe. And he said, so people go and they just assume they're going to be protected and they fall over. Here, he said, you just look at it and you're like, okay, this is just a death trap. And you use your senses, you use your common sense, where we take all of that away because we try to protect everybody. And, it's like washing your hands all the time with antibacterial soap. For the most part, every germ that you encounter every day, just soap and water is fine and your body can take care of it. For the most part, we weaken ourselves by not letting our body fight the weaker germs.
Completely agree. Said that many times. And it made me think of the railing in the Grand Canyon. Not that anyone's going to do this. It's not an apples to apples comparison. But, a lot of people say you want to stop all these concussions and horrific injuries and impact things in the NFL, get rid of the helmets. Because people have a feeling of safety in those things.
Look at rugby. Look at the difference between rugby and the NFL. The injuries in the NFL are much worse than they are in rugby because you're not wearing all that equipment. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, and thanks for putting a finer point on it. I'm looking at your bio here, Glenn, and I'm looking at some of the tragedy you've had in your life. Your mother and stepbrother committed suicide. You were addicted until becoming sober in 1994. You were contemplating suicide this year before becoming sober. How close were you to your stepmother and your mother and stepmother? Yeah,
my mother and my
stepbrother. Sorry.
I was really close. Really close. I was probably the closest to my mom. I had I had just started to figure out that something was wrong with my mom. I had just started marking the bottle of vodka in the pantry because I noticed that it was going down quickly. And my mom was addicted to prescription drugs and alcohol, and just could not find. She was this. It's kind of like the people maybe that are alive right now. We're kind of in this transition period where it's not the old times and it's not the new times yet. So she kind of came up, and she was too old for the burn your bra kind of person. So she wasn't young enough to do that, but she wasn't old enough to be like my grandmother. And so she kind of never really fit. It was in this transitional period, and just couldn't find any happiness, and just couldn't find her way, and ended her life.
How old were you?
13.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, it's funny. I have twins that are 13, so boy, girl twins that are both 13. So I'm doing the math. Neither one of them is interested in getting their learner's permit in a couple years either.
Yeah.
So I feel your pain.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I was just talking to my wife who knew my story pretty well, but she just turned to me at dinner the other night and she said, "Wait a minute, when did you stop living with your mom and never really live with your mom ever again?" And I said, 13. And she looked at my son and my daughter and went, "Oh my God, could you imagine, me not living with these two in perpetuity?" And I was like, yeah, well, that's where I come from, and so my mom is still alive, although it's, I don't know if she can prove it, but she's still alive. But I basically left at 13 as well. That has to be devastating. Whenever I hear about something like this, I hope that the person is either too young to really digest the impact of it, or old enough that they're out of the house and whatever. 13 is a bad age for that.
I don't know if there's ever a good age of losing.
No, there's just worse and then devastating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It shapes you no matter what age you are. It's part of it, and it's lousy, but that's just the way it is. And that kind of, if I can go back to what we were talking about before, the people who are coming of age now. I mean, I was thinking the other day, this is the 25th anniversary of Timothy McVeigh. And
wow.
I remember where I was. I remember how I felt that day. I remember all of it. And if you're 25, you were born when that was happening. So you don't recall. And so that means your first memory is probably 9/11, that tragedy. And you probably felt unsafe. We were going to war, the economy. Then your next big memory was 2008, and the banks and maybe mom and dad lost their job, but it was unstable, and you've noticed the government was in collusion with the banks, and now this, and you're 25. You've had those three experiences. How could you possibly believe in this system or believe that the good guy wins if you're just kind of in a family that's just kind of coasting along? I mean, these kids did not have the experience we did. And we expect them, we look at them and we expect them to get it. How
Well, I'm not sure, how you would rank the economy tanking in 2008 or Watergate or Vietnam or Kent State or, many of the sort of tragedies or setbacks, assassinations,
Sure.
Martin Luther King, Kennedy, or whatever it is. I don't know that you can say one is more powerful than the other. I do say that there wasn't a 24/7 news cycle telling us how horrible it was when I was a kid.
Correct.
So
And we did believe in some institutions. We have everything telling us none of these institutions are good. We grew up in an era where, you're riding your bike and you're doing something stupid. Somebody's coming out on the porch going, I know your parents.
right.
I'm going to be calling your parents, Mr. Carolla. And they would. And it was a different, you were floating in a sea of everything that was kind of stable for the most part in your community. Now everybody's so freaked out about anything. We don't even let our kids go out and ride their bikes in the neighborhood.
Well, listen, let's get back to boring, because I do not think we were meant to be this stimulated this often. And I look at it, I always think of it as in terms of like hydration. When I was a kid, it was the summer, I had a bike, I'd leave my house and I'd be gone the entire day. And it was late July and it was the San Fernando Valley and it was hotter than snot outside. And I was just gone. There was no money in my pocket. I had no travel mug or squeeze container that said Gatorade on it. I wasn't looking to, replenish or rehydrate. I didn't know what electrolyte was. I just took off and saw whatever the adventure of the day, whatever would unfold. And at a certain point at 1 p.m, when the sun was at its zenith, you'd stop and grab a hose, couple of hits off a hose on some neighbors. You wouldn't even ask permission, just drop your bike, run in there, suck off the hose, and then back onto the bike. And I find myself, and I know there's a habitual aspect to it. It has nothing to do with hydration. I find myself heading down to do this podcast and I go, okay, hold on. Where's my coffee? I got my coffee mug over here. Where's my water? I got my filter. I got my bottled water over here. Where's my water? And I'm like taking hits off it. I'm sitting in a 70-degree room with no elements. I'm not burning a calorie. There's no reason I need to hydrate down here. But I see the same with my kids. They got something for lunch. They got something for dinner. They're going to basketball practice. Take this, put this packet in it, shake it up, put your name on it, have it. We don't really realize that how much of this is habitual and how little we really need, especially kids.
The one thing that has come out of this that I absolutely love is my wife is not hauling my kids' butts around all the time. You want to play baseball? There's a field. Go get some friends and play baseball. What are you doing? Why am I dragging your ass out to a baseball diamond where you can play an organized sport where the parents are way, way too into it? Just go play. We got to a point just before this to where I see my wife twice during the weekday because I was working upside down hours. She was working, with the kids in the house. We'd see twice, and I wouldn't see my kids except on the weekends because they were always going someplace. And I looked at her probably, I don't know, about 3 months ago, and I said, this is ridiculous. What are we doing? Well, all the kids are doing these things. I don't care what all the kids are doing. Well, why is it so important all of a sudden?
I just had this kind of weird realization mixed in with a graphic. I lived across the street from Colfax Elementary, and there was a basketball hoop there, and we play basketball there. And I also lived across the street from Colfax, which had a baseball diamond. It wasn't grass or dirt. It was just blacktop as baseball. And we used to play one-on-one baseball. One guy pitched, the other guy batted, and the guy pitched had a skateboard and would go run down the ball. We only had one ball. But I picture myself walking out of my house during the summer and in the evenings and climbing that 8-foot fence, going over the top of it, and then going to play basketball or baseball. And then later on, we'd go to Walter Reed Elementary, my Walter Reed Junior High, my high school, and we'd go there on a Saturday, and everyone would hop the fence, and we'd play a pickup football game on the grass. If you took the number of fences I hopped between 1973 and 1984 and laid them out on a grid, you could go to Boston and back to North Hollywood. That if you put them end to end, I mean, I'm not even kidding. I would hop that fence over at Colfax Elementary 3-4 times a day during the summer, every day. All I did was hop fences. Now I'm picturing my 13-year-old son. He's never climbed over a fence. He's never hopped a fence. He's never climbed into, we're going to go in that yard. They got a big area there. We can use that. They're not there. Think about the act of hopping fences and in that feeling, putting your toes into the thing and grabbing that top bar. And then there's hopping the fence in fear. Then there's they got a dog. You know what I mean? Like there's that side too, or the maintenance guy's coming after us with a pitchfork. Like
I tell you, the one thing I am really jealous of you for being able to do is nobody in my family has ever been handy. I mean, I think we have a hammer at the house, and my son and I, we love old cars, but there's absolutely no way I could pop a hood. I had a truck break down on the side of the road, and I popped the hood of the truck and I opened it up, and I realized as I'm looking at it, I have no idea what I'm even looking at. Why did I pop the hood? Somebody drove by and they said, "You need some help?" And I was actually embarrassed. I'm like, no, I got it. Put the hood back down. What the hell am I doing? I called AAA. But there's something about that I wish I had the know-how at all to not be an idiot around cars. My son and I, when he was probably 7, my wife got an old 1958 Chevy, a Chevy truck, and I was underneath it with my son. He was like 6, and she came out and she said, "What are you guys doing?" And I said, "We're just looking at all the stuff underneath." I had absolutely no idea what any of it was, but there's something about laying under a car with your son. I wish I had that.
There's the thing that's weird about me is my dad never did any of it and never had any interest in it, and my son has no interest in it either. So while you may be envious, I'm going it alone. And I you want a
15-year-old boy? Because I'm
sure
interested.
bring them by. And I oftentimes though realize that you can take what you know about cars and apply it to building, and what you know about building to cars, and there is a very kind of brass tacks kind of, here's the order you need to do things, here's what makes sense. But the bigger thing now that I think about it is I think about building or working on cars. Everything in fixing cars or erecting buildings or doing everything there's always a calculation of how is this thing going to affect the next thing. Because when you go, all right, so you want to hop up your car, and I think you'll see this as a sort of metaphor for our society. You want to hop up your car, and so people go, all right, what do you have? Well, I don't know. I have a Mustang. And you go, okay, what's it got? It's got 300 horsepower. And you go, okay. What do you want to do? Well, I want to get more horsepower. All right. So you go, oh, you can put on a cone filter, like a cold air filter, and we can flash it and do something with the programming and the injection on it. We can do a catback exhaust system and add some horsepower. And then you go, no, I want real horsepower. I want to bolt on a supercharger. And you go, okay, well, if you really want to bolt on horsepower, now we got to open up the bottom end. Because if the rods and the crank and the pistons are not built for 700 horsepower, they're built for 300. We could round it up to 350. They'd be fine. But if you want to go big, now there's something else that's going to be affected. And that's got to pass through a transmission. So now you need a heavy duty clutch. It's not just you bolting on a supercharger. And then what about the rear end? You're going to break the rear end with that kind of horsepower. You need more. And now that we got all this horsepower, we need bigger brakes because now we got to slow this car down. And so to just kind of say, I want this and I don't care about that is sort of like saying, you know, hey, healthcare for all. Okay. But I don't care about that. And so my feeling is when people come from a sort of building perspective and a construction thing, they're always thinking, well, then what about this? You can't just have that and not have this. We have to account for that.
I restored a 200-year-old house in Connecticut. I learned that quaint equals crap.
Right.
Bought this old house and it was so quaint and so New England-y and oh my gosh. A beam sheared off. It was post and beam, and a beam sheared off, and the whole house had to be jacked back together before it collapsed by the end of the day. And as we got into it, that whole thing started with, I just want to open up this wall for a closet.
Right.
Everything. I mean, we had to redo the entire house. I don't think people understand that. That's like somebody asked me today. You know, how do you think we're going to do with restarting the economy? I mean, you know, is there anything specific we need to do? They said, well, seeing that no one's ever done this before, and it's kind of like taking a 747 and just turning the engines off and saying, by the way, the altimeter is also out, so we're not sure when we're going to hit the ground. Well, we're going to turn these engines on right before we hit the ground. Who knows? Who knows what's happening? Because all we thought about was we got to stop the death or we have to stop the hospitals from imploding. So we just turned everything off and we never thought, wait a minute, what happens when we turn everything off? We've never done it.
Right. And I guess in my analogy, it's like saying, I just want more horsepower, bolt on a big nitro blower on top and we'll get more horsepower. And it's like, no, there's a lot of other things you got to consider. That's what I'm saying. All right, let me hit LegalZoom and then we'll talk a little more with Mr. Glenn Beck. LegalZoom, with health and safety on everyone's mind. Now's the time to make sure your loved ones are protected. LegalZoom, a reliable way to set up the right estate plan without leaving your home. You do it all from your computer. Mark Aragus will tell you he uses LegalZoom. He sends clients to LegalZoom. I think he told Dawson and Gary and Mike Lynch to use LegalZoom. It's just a cheaper, easier, more cost-effective way to do it. If you need a last will and testament or a living trust, a LegalZoom, or even an advanced healthcare directive. How about that? Or power of attorney. Let's get it going with LegalZoom. LegalZoom is a law firm, so you don't have to worry about the expensive billable hours adding up. It's LegalZoom, right, Dawson?
Whether you need to incorporate, form an LLC, or set up your business another way, use LegalZoom to maximize your business's potential and make your accountant happy. Go to LegalZoom.com today to get your business on the right track for 2020. LegalZoom, where life meets legal.
Hey, Glenn, let's talk about you.
Have that voice.
Yeah, Dawson's the best.
Oh, gosh.
Hey, Glenn, when did you realize that you wanted to inform, entertain, change opinions or minds? Like, was this something that was always kind of on your mind?
No, I grew up when I was 7 years old. My mother told me to go play outside. I was watching TV and she said, turn the TV off and go play outside. I lived in Seattle. It was like the one nice day that year. And I muttered under my breath, you watch TV when you were a kid. And she said, excuse me? And then I realized, oh crap, don't talk back to mom. And I said, when you were a kid, you watched TV. And she told me something amazing that, didn't have television when she grew up. And I was thinking, how old are you? I mean, Wilma Flintstone had television.
Right.
She told me about radio, the way it was back in the day. And she told me that My grandfather had an old radio with a green eye in the center, and he'd turn it on and it would light up from behind with a tube, and they would listen to Jack Armstrong, the All-American Boy, or Fibber McGee and Molly with a Closet, and Lights Out. And I was spellbound by this. And for my 8th birthday, she got me a collection of records called The Golden Age of Radio. And I listened to these old programs. I mean, I was a weirdo kid, and was sat there and just listened to them. And I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to create pictures in people's minds. So I got into radio when I was 13, right before my mom died, and really didn't have any intention of doing politics or anything. I mean, I hate politics. I hate it. I'm so bored by it. I despise the people in it for the most part. I don't have any friends in Washington or anything. I mean, I don't like it. But I feel like it's an important thing to do now, to speak up for the Constitution, speak up for our rights, and speak up against both the Republicans and the Democrats. I hate them both.
Yeah, I was never into politics that much, and now I look at it as a very interesting peek behind a sort of psychodynamic curtain. Like I'm studying it as an experiment in human behavior, a little less than sheer politics. You know, I find myself talking to Dr. Drew a lot about what motivates this side and what motivates that side and what motivates people. And so to me, it's like saying, does the guy who work in the lab love mice? And it's like, no, but he studies them very closely and spends a lot of time with them so he can learn things, you know, general things, bigger truths, things that may have an application somewhere other than mice. You know what I mean? And so I find myself studying the media and politics that way.
I find myself, the best part of my job is learning history. I really love history because you can understand where you're going because it's all been done before, and you can see the roots of where all of this came from, and understand it. And I like that part of it. I like being able to figure out why things are happening the way they are and where we're headed because of the people involved or the movements involved. But it's frustrating because everybody's just living for right now. And
yeah.
So it's hard to get people to understand, wait a minute, there's a lot more behind this that you need to understand.
Well, again, when you talk to Dr. Drew, he talks a lot how things are analogous in many ways to like the French Revolution. And I don't know anything about the French Revolution because I wasn't educated. I know bits and pieces of it, but I mean, and it's always interesting and it's kind of humbling to think, yeah, they were just people and they were living in modern times because it's always modern times. Right. When you're alive, that's where you're at as a society. That's whatever somebody, you know, invents indoor plumbing and it's modern times in your world, you know? So to them, they're in living color, they're flesh and blood, it's modern times. And that's what's happening in their modern times. And they're just human beings. We haven't changed that much, probably haven't evolved that much. So why shouldn't we just repeat almost everything that came before us, considering it was always human beings and that's what they did? The animal kingdom doesn't change that much. You know, I mean, pods of whales from 500 years ago are probably doing what pods of whales are doing today. Why would it be that much different?
Because we have intellect, we have brains, we are explorers, and we have to learn from the past or we will be whales, which, you know, at this point, I'm fine. Any more time in the house and I'm going to be a whale, but I'm fine with being a whale at this point. But we have to learn from it. You know, Drew is right about the French Revolution. We have all of the seeds of the French Revolution happening right here. But we were different than the French Revolution. That movement was the same here as it was over in France. Why? Thomas Paine, the guy who wrote Common Sense and wrote, These Are the Times that Try Men's Souls. That guy stirred us into revolution here. But when he went over to France, because he was trying to be the pamphleteer for the French, try to help the French become free, they started beheading people. And he stepped back and said, whoa, we didn't do this in America. What's the difference? That's important to know what the difference is, because we're headed down the same road. And we can either have a revolution or evolution, if you want, that brings people to a higher place like we did in America, or you'll have the French Revolution, which will just degrade and destroy.
Yeah. What year was the French Revolution, or years, I should say? And
I don't know, 1790.
My guys will put it up on the screen. We'll get it exactly. Yeah, evidently anyone who studied it, like Dr. Drew and Glenn Beck, see a lot of corollaries or familiarities between the two. So going back to your love of radio, which I had as well, I just didn't know it. I found myself listening to Dr. Demento and all kinds of other fixtures on the radio and mimicking them and stuff, but I just had no jumping off point. I wish my mom had got me a record collection of golden oldies from the golden era of radio. But Glenn, can you hear me? You froze up for a second. I'll filibust here while we get Glenn freed up. The French Revolution was May 5th. Is that May Day? May 5th, 1789. So late 17 to November 9th, 1799. So right at the end there. It's about 10 years.
And May Day is usually May 1st.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. We'll get Glenn back up, I'm guessing.
Yeah, he got. We could pause right now. He got disconnected, so we'll.
He got disconnected.
We'll wait till he signs back on.
All right. Well, I'll take care of our last bit of housework here. Happy cards. Mother's Day coming up. Happy cards. Perfect way to make mom feel special. Limited edition Mother's Day card. Treat her to dinner, a movie, spa, shopping spree, and more. One convenient card. We're going to open this society up real soon, and I'm going to go back and get myself something to eat and a massage. Brands like Cheesecake Factory, Macy's, Panera, Regal, Spa Finder, Ulta, Sally Beauty, or Yankee Candle. E-gift option delivered straight to her inbox. Happy You card features P.F. Chang's. I love me some P.F. Chang's. Macy's, Ulta, AMC, and other great retailers for mom, sister, wife, friends. No fees, no stress, never expire. They never expire. And I've gotten these. I'm going to continue to get them, and I'm going to go out and get myself a massage. Hey, Dawson, how about Happy Cards?
Enjoy free shipping on all Happy Cards orders by visiting www.giftcards.com/happy. Have a happy Mother's Day with Happy Cards. That's giftcards.com/happy.
Glenn is back.
What would he do? Seriously, Dawson, what would you do if it wasn't this? Say this for me. Just say this for me. Just say,
Probably
hi, welcome to Walmart. How can I help you?
Hi, welcome to Walmart. How can I help you?
That would work.
It would work. It would work.
Let's keep your job at Walmart. Let's say you're now working the tray with the cheese,
Mm-hmm.
and you say 1 cube of jalapeno jack per customer, please.
Ma'am, 1 cube of jalapeno jack per customer, please.
Hi, welcome
back and get another.
Hi, welcome to Taco Bell. Would you like to try our super burrito?
Hi, welcome to Taco Bell. You want to try our super burrito? Get it now.
Yeah, I think you would bring something to all those tables, Dawson, but you would not be appreciated like you're appreciated on
No, this is the job for you.
Yeah.
Give me the countdown for a space shuttle or NASA. You could do that. That'd be cool.
Guidance. Control. We are go.
See that'd be something on your resume.
Well, there's we'll have
I like
to
the
figure it out.
T- part.
Yeah, T minus.
T- 10. 9.
So
what are we
Glenn,
subtracting from T?
All right.
Go on.
I've created a monster.
You're a radio. So, it's funny. Radio's an interesting vocation because the guys that are into it are into it, like Jimmy Kimmel's a radio guy. Howard Stern's a radio guy. I consider myself a radio guy. You're a radio guy. Everyone goes off and does other things as well, but you have that kind of first love of radio.
Yeah.
And you had that early, and I don't know, maybe I don't know if we'll ever have that again, because the radio was something really magical. It's like somebody was brought into your lonely world and plugged in your wall and in your bedroom with you, and you'd hear the countdown or Dr. Demento.
I think it still can be. I mean, I don't want to be that old guy who's like, when I was a kid, and you're like, okay, it's better now. So I think you still have it. It's the magic of being able to talk to one person. That's really where the magic came from. It wasn't a broadcaster. It was a narrowcast. The ones who were good broadcasters actually were narrowcasting right to you.
But I'm wondering if we now have too much information. So, back in the day, a celebrity to me was a celebrity. Andy was a mystery. I didn't know if he had a DUI and it was on the third divorce, and there was tape of him calling a female cop monkey nipples on the side of Sugar Tits or whatever he called her on the side of PCH.
Awesome. We need to hear that. We need to hear those.
I didn't know who Charlton Heston or John Wayne was. I just knew they made movies and they're movie stars. And when I would listen to the radio, I didn't know who these people were. I didn't know what they looked like. I didn't want to know what they looked like. I wanted to hear their voice. And now everyone knows what everyone looks like. Everyone knows about everyone's foibles. Everyone knows, oh yeah, that guy, his kid, he's got a 16-year-old who's transitioning and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, and you go, oh, I don't want to know everything about that person. I like the more mystery and the less history part. And so I don't know if we'll ever be able to have that relationship. Like there was a mystery to everyone who was on the radio when I was a kid.
Yeah. And it was, when I first got into radio, I had to go take a test for the FCC to get my license to be on the radio. That's insane now. Then you had to go convince somebody to put you on the radio. Now everybody, my audience has an audience. And in some ways that's really cool. In other ways, I was thinking about my son. There's no, you even watch movies now, everything is reality, even though all of it's fake. It's all reality. I was watching Man in Space. Walt Disney did this great thing back in '55 called Man in Space. And, he had, what was his name? Werner von Braun, the Nazi scientist that helped us get to the moon. And he put him together with Ward Kimball, the guy who did all of the Seven Dwarfs for, Snow White. And he's like, here's this little guy, Ward Kimball, and Werner von Braun. And he's like, hey, Ward, meet the Nazi scientist. You two got to do a movie together. And so it came out and it was called Man in Space. And the legend is that Eisenhower called Walt after it aired and said, "Walt, you son of a bitch, you did it. I've been trying to convince the Pentagon that we could go to the moon. You did one better. You convinced the American people we could go to the moon." So I'm telling my kid this story, and he's not interested. And we're watching Man in the Moon, this old 1950 thing about what it's like. And then he did Man in Space, Man in Mars. And we got to Mars, and I said, someday you are going to see men living on Mars. And he was probably 10 at the time, and he said, "And?"
Right.
And I said, "We'll go to Mars someday." And he's like, "We haven't already been there?" I mean, there's no awe of anything anymore.
No, that is so incredibly true. I remember the little things. Like when I was a kid, if I saw a guy with a leather attaché case, that guy was a winner.
Yeah.
I was like,
right.
Where did you get that? How much was that? You
I
must be
remember
super important.
I remember seeing the guy in town that owned the Mercedes. You're like, whoa, that guy, that's a foreign car.
Oh, the amount you could learn from somebody by the car they drove.
Yeah.
Now everyone's just driving a beige Prius around or a Ford F-150, and we don't know jack squat about them. But man, what you knew about someone by the car they were driving was almost everything.
Mm-hmm.
And yes,
I think you can tell a lot if you're driving a Prius. I think I know enough.
Especially in Texas, but I'm from LA. So this awe, this wonderment, it is exactly right, because so guys like us are constantly trying to get a rise out of our unleavened kids. There's no fucking yeast in these kids at all. And I keep looking through the window in the oven going, when are they going to start rising? And I can't get a rise out of my unleavened son. 40 years in the desert and nothing. Right. No, I said to my son the other day, I bought this fantastic pool table, and the pool table was $10,000. And I said to my son, we're shooting a game of pool on it the other night. I was like, this pool table, yeah, $10,000. Yeah. I said, my dad's house in North Hollywood, he bought in 1973, $10,000. This pool table cost as much as the house I lived in. And he was like, there you go. Hand me the chalk.
That's exactly right.
Unleavened sons. Exactly. That should be our next podcast. We just explain all the crazy shit we tell them about. And they go, all right.
My son, we were repairing a wall, and we were just putting spackle on the wall to repaint it. We had cut a hole in the wall for something. So we're just spackling the wall, and we're working for about 20 minutes. And I have to get up on a ladder and get way up in the ceiling, and he's holding the ladder, and it's a little dicey. And I come down and he says, Dad, why don't we just hire somebody to do this? And it was like he was an alien all of a sudden. I'm like, what? He's like, just hire somebody to do this. Why don't we hire somebody to do this? They don't. It's at least with my kids, it's hard. Because they have had somewhat of a life of privilege. We try to keep them, but I think all American kids have this life of privilege where you don't really have to do stuff. You don't really have to be scrappy and figure it out and do stuff. A lot of kids don't. I hate that.
No, yeah. I grew up sort of like MacGyver. You know what I mean? You got a toothpick and some chewing gum and a C-cell battery, and you got to make something out of this thing.
Right.
And they're just heading off to the IMAX theater and getting a jumbo tub of whatever and watching it. And, I don't, what I keep saying, and as in closing, I'll be interested in your thoughts on this. There is no unringing of this bell. It is. It's ubiquitous. It's society. Our kids cannot avoid it. But what they can do is choose what their relationship is with it. So I, for instance, will never order Grubhub. If I order a pizza or Chinese food, I go pick it up. That's my rule. Now, I can afford the Grubhub, of course. I just have a set of rules. I go, you want a pizza? Call the guy, then go get in your car, and then go get your pizza. And that's the way I do it. I've imposed these things. It has nothing to do with finances or time, or doesn't have anything to do with anything. It's just these are little rules. And if you can walk to that place instead of drive to that place, then you're going to have to walk to that place. It's just, we're now living in a place where there's air conditioning and big screen TVs and food brought to us, and we're just going to have to create little games and impose this on ourselves. And so I would tell everyone, you're not going to be able to avoid it because it's ubiquitous. It's all around us. We're in a snow globe and it's in a paint can shaker. We're not going to avoid any of this stuff, but you can do it from a sort of micro version of your life. You can choose not to do this. You can choose to do things yourself. You can choose to vacuum your own rug and wash your own car, and you now need to, because all things are ostensibly free, and you'll slide down this road with everybody. And it's not, it doesn't have a good ending. So start imposing those values.
Well, I'm going to call Grubhub. Let me just. You reminded me of, I was over in Poland. We went to Auschwitz, and I brought my family there, and we had lined up an interview with one of these righteous among the nations, this Christian woman who, as a teenager, was saving Jews, her and her mom and dad. It was an amazing story. And we sat there with her and talked, and she was just so humble and so kind. And right before we left, I said, look, I think the world is headed towards real trouble. And what do we do? Because I think the tree of righteousness is in everybody. How do I water that? How do I get that in my kids and myself and others? And she looked at me like I was crazy. And she said, you don't understand. The righteous didn't suddenly become righteous. They just didn't go over the cliff with the rest of everyone, with the rest of society. And that has rung in my head so often. You don't have to be heroic. You don't have to do really much. You just have to know where your lines are, what your principles are, how you were raised, what's right and wrong, and then don't move. Just don't move. And that solves most of a problem.
A good note to go out on. Arguing with Socialists, the name of the book's available now on Amazon, and the radio show, the Glenn Beck program. Weekdays, 9 a.m. to noon Eastern time. And why don't you just go to glennbeck.com and find out everything you need to know about the book and the programs and everything else. Hey, Glenn, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Always good to talk to you, Adam.
I feel the same way. Until next time, this is Adam Carolla for Gina Grad, Bryan and Glenn Beck saying mahalo.